Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you missed our last video, we dove deep into the Burtonverse, the universe where Tim Burton's Batman and Christopher Reeve's Superman exist. If you haven't seen that one yet, go check it out after this because today we're picking up right where we left off. We're talking about the Flash movie, the multiverse chaos, and how Michael Keaton's Batman is involved in all of this. But here's the twist, this version of Batman isn't exactly the same one we saw in Burton Batman's films. I'm going to explain why that is and what this means for the multiverse, and yes, Earth-789 gets involved too, so buckle up, let's get into it. Now if you remember from our last video, we talked about the Burtonverse, Tim Burton's vision of Gotham and the world of Batman. Michael Keaton's Batman was dark, brooding and gritty, definitely a product of its time. We also introduced Earth-789, the reality where Burton's Batman exists, alongside Christopher Reeve's Superman. It's a unique timeline where both of these iconic characters are part of the same world. The aesthetic, tone and vibe of the Burtonverse are instantly recognisable. But here's the kicker, the Keaton Batman in the Flash movie isn't the same guy. In the Flash movie, we get to see Keaton reprise his role as Batman, but there's something different about him. Now we know Keaton's Batman from Burton's 1989 Batman and the 1992 Batman Returns. In those films, his Batman is more isolated, emotionally distant, and doesn't necessarily trust anyone. He's dark and a bit broken by the events of his parents' death, yet he's driven by justice. He works in his own world, fighting crime in Gotham, without much interaction with other heroes or a wider universe. But the Keaton we see in The Flash is a version that's lived through some serious changes, when Barry Allen messes with the timeline and creates the multiverse chaos. This Batman is pulled into a new reality, and this isn't just about him being older, it's about the fact he's been through different events in this timeline. He's not the same Batman who was dealing with Penguin or Catwoman. The Gotham he knows has changed. His mission has evolved and he's clearly more aware of the broader multiversal chaos. So he's a little bit more open to the idea of teaming up with other heroes, like the Flash, for the greater good. What's key here is that this version of Batman is from a different timeline, where things didn't unfold the way we saw in Burton's films. In the Burtonverse, Keaton's Batman was a lone vigilante. He didn't rely on others, and the only really ally he had was Alfred. But in The Flash, this Batman has experienced a world where the multiverse is real, and other realities can collide. That means this Batman is likely aware of other versions of himself, maybe even some of the other multiverse events, and that's something we never saw in Burton's timeline. Plus, his costume is a bit different, with some modern upgrades, which shows that this Keaton has evolved with the time, something we didn't see in the original films. Now let's talk about something that stands out, Gotham itself and Wayne Manor. In the Burtonverse, Gotham was this dark, grimy, almost gothic city. It was a place where shadows always seemed to lurk, and Wayne Manor had that very old, ominous feel. It was a reflection of Batman's own psychological state, mysterious, foreboding, and full of secrets. The architecture was classic Burton, with exaggerated features and a sense of isolation. But in The Flash, the Gotham and Wayne Manor we see look drastically different. Sure, you'll still have this grandiose mansion and the dark city, but there's a significant shift. This Gotham feels a little less grim and more lived in, almost like it had a fresh coat of paint. It's still a city filled with crime, but it feels more like a place Keaton's Batman has already done battle with, one that has evolved. Wayne Manor also feels less like a haunted house, and more like a somewhat modern, functional estate. There's an idea that this Bruce Wayne has spent years rebuilding not only himself, but his surroundings. His Bruce Wayne persona seems a bit less tortured in this reality, like he's had time to reflect and make peace with his past. So this Batman has seen a different kind of Gotham and Wayne Manor than we saw in the Burtonverse. And then there's the multiverse itself. Barry Allen's actions in The Flash create a massive collision of Earths, where different timelines crash into one another, and as a result we get Keaton's Batman, who's from a timeline where he's had a different set of experiences than the one in the original Burtonverse. Now this collision messes with everything, especially for Barry, but it also introduces us to Earth-789, the reality where Burton's Superman, played by Christopher Reeve, exists, and that's where the complications start. With Earths crashing together suddenly, the world Keaton's Batman lives in has to adjust to these new overlapping timelines and characters. It's not just Batman anymore, it's a whole new world where the rules of the Burtonverse no longer apply the same way. There's more than one version of each hero, and each has their own history, which creates an unstable foundation. Now here's where it gets really complicated. As we've seen in the movie, the multiverse collision also introduces Nick Cage's Superman from Superman Lives, a film that never actually happened but was being developed under Tim Burton in the late 90s. Yes, you heard that right, Burton's Superman. If you don't know, Cage was cast as Superman in a project that ultimately fell through, but the Flash movie pulls this version of Superman into the multiverse chaos. This is a big issue because Nick Cage's Superman was supposed to be part of Tim Burton's Superman universe, which feels connected to Keaton's Batman in a way. But Cage's Superman shouldn't technically exist in the same multiverse as Christopher Reeve's Superman, who is already being implied to be part of the Burtonverse timeline. So now we have a situation where two very different Supermen, one from the 80s and one from the 90s, are colliding, despite being linked to Burton in different ways. The timeline's integrity is in total disarray, and we have to wonder how these characters are going to coexist. So we have to ask, what happens when multiple versions of Superman exist in the same timeline? How do these different interpretations fit into Earth-789, which we've established as the home to Burton's Batman and Reeve's Superman? The merging of Earths only complicates matters. These characters aren't just crossing paths, they're being thrust into the same world, with Nick Cage's Superman showing up alongside Reeve's Superman and Keaton's Batman now playing a role in the multiverse. It's clear that this universe is breaking down, but how will it all shake out? We'll have to wait and see. Alright guys, that's it for today's breakdown of The Flash, Keaton's Batman and the whole multiverse situation. If you missed our last video on the Burtonverse and Earth-789, make sure you check that one out too. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. What do you think the future holds for these alternative versions of Batman and Superman? Make sure to like the video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.